We all know we are living in the time of digital transformation. Even if we don't know it, we can feel it. Cities are becoming digital. They're getting ready. They're preparing their digital strategies. They're also getting ready for the Internet of Things. My co-speakers will be talking about smart cities. So everyone is getting ready for the big change. Also, as you heard this morning, robots are already taking over some of the high-precision jobs. And actually, they're doing much better than we as humans ever will. Luckily, we have people to help guide them in the right direction. And young people, like those of you who were in the audience this morning, actually experimenting with making robots do us service from a very early age. Last year, I gave quite a few talks around the world in the context of both emotional intelligence and the artificial world, the digital industry. And I've found out that actually artificial intelligence seems to be everywhere. And do you know who gave more talks than I did last year? Sophia the AI. Last week I actually had an email saying that she will be moderating one of the panels soon. But luckily, she's not going to take all our jobs because as a Serbian artist, digital artist and researcher, Katarina Popović, also known as Kata Data, said in her TED Talk that robots and artificial intelligence can do many things, but they still can't read between the lines. And that's something that we as humans sort of still have reserved for ourselves. But let's watch that space. Now, you know that the digital industry is growing twice as fast as any other. At least with the stats of the developed countries such as the UK, that is the case. For places like Bosnia and Herzegovina, Western Balkans, we're not even 100% sure. But what we also need to know is that behind all the innovation, behind the cities, behind all the digital developments and growths, it's people who are making the difference, it's people who are leading the change. Now, I can't see you very well because you're in the dark, but let me try this. Can I have a show of hands? How many of you engage with or work with people on a daily basis? So, if you deal with people, hands up. So from what I can see, it's most of you. Now, can I check the opposite? How many of you don't deal with people at all? We have one. Can you tell us why? As a child, I'm pretty sure, do you use social media? It's people behind the social media as well, directly or indirectly. What I've found in the time of researching how emotional intelligence affects the artificial world, I've seen that there is a point where teams and industry grows, and actually, when they reach a certain point, the brain, you being so smart and having the technical skills, is simply not enough. That's the time when the critical skill or a skill set of emotional intelligence comes into play. And what do we mean by that? Well, I'm not sure how many of you may have experienced being in a team, working really well, achieving excellent results, and then the team grows and someone has to become the new manager or the new lead. I've discovered that in the digital industry, very often it's the people with very good technical skills get promoted into leadership roles. Some of them succeed, but some of them also, unfortunately, fail miserably. And the key difference that comes at this level of responsibility is the set of skills related to emotional intelligence. So that means how you handle yourself and how you handle other people. Emotional intelligence is taking the time to understand yourself and to understand others. It includes things such as self-awareness, meaning understanding why I feel the way I feel, understanding what's behind my emotions. If I'm this excited to see you all here, what's driving that? Or if I'm anxious or nervous, is this something that's making me perform even better, or is it making me perform worse than I might have in some other context? Similarly so, when it comes to emotional intelligence, the next step is self-regulation. And what do we mean by that? Well, basically, imagine being in a scenario where we all, when we got angry, started banging doors, shutting drawers, yelling, especially in a work environment. This is not really acceptable, although the person might feel better. Self-regulation is the space between the emotion and the action you take. So the conscious knowing of how you feel, acknowledging how you feel, but taking the time to pause and make a conscious decision in actually how you behave. I'm not saying that we should be pretending to be happy when we're sad inside. I'm not saying that we should be all peaches and cream when I'm really, really angry. But I am saying that we need to take the time to first acknowledge our emotion and then have a space before we act on impulse to act the way we choose to program ourselves. I'm not sure if you have heard or seen much of the work of Dr. Susan David, who has done quite a lot in the area of emotional agility. She talks exactly about these things. Acknowledging all emotions, whether they are comfortable or uncomfortable, but there are no such things as bad emotions, only comfortable and uncomfortable. So the first part is knowing yourself, taking the time and space to understand yourself. Luckily, there are professionals who can help us with things like this. Also, the second element of working with emotional intelligence in the real world or the artificial world is figuring out motivation. So what it is that motivates me. Rashad this morning talked about passion and doing something with purpose. That's exactly what you need to stop and ask yourself about. What is it that really drives you? Luckily, very early on in my career, I realized that what really, really drives me is helping others develop. So to have this space and to talk to you today is a huge motivating force, because part of my motivation is serving others. When we go to the next level, we are talking about things like empathy and social skills. Basically, the knowledge of how to engage with other people. And this is hugely important, especially in the changing world that we are experiencing. So just to backtrack a little bit, we said, looking at yourself and looking at others, understanding yourself and understanding others, managing or regulating your own behavior and your relationship with other people, because you need other people to be doing anything you're doing and to make a difference. And the third level is motivating. So motivating yourself, but also if you are in a leadership role, it's a really hard job to know what it is that motivates other people. And it's really, really important to actually stop and think, what's driving my team? What is it that makes them happy and worthwhile doing what they're doing? These are the top ingredients in making yourself really useful when working with other people. Now, can I have another show of hands? If you're holding your phone as we speak right now, can you wave your phone at me, please? It's fine. It's absolutely fine that you do. It's a totally normal thing. Okay, I see a few phones. Hi, phones. Hi, social media and lives. What about those of you who have your phone within your reach, but not necessarily in your hand? So in your pocket or very, very nearby. Okay, can I have those of you who had phones join hands as well? Is there anyone in this room who actually doesn't have their phone nearby and is quite happy and comfortable living as a human being without having access to their phone? Anyone? Ooh, I see one up there. Let me see if I can see you better. Congratulations. You are an endangered species. I'd love and come to talk to you after the session because there's so much we need to learn from people who are able to actually regulate themselves when it comes to using technology. So you might wonder, okay, here she is, another psychologist talking about emotional intelligence. What has that got to do with telephones? Well, in reality, even as far as 2.5 years ago, the stats for mobile telephone use showed that on average, in the United States of America, this is a credible source, I can refer you to it, but I'm not allowed to say the name of the company, so we don't promote. Basically, the average number of times we swipe our smartphone on a daily basis is 2,617. That's a large number. And this stat includes people like my father, who only swipe their screen when I call him or when he calls me. We also reach out for our phone 53 times on average. And I recently read an article about a gentleman who was going through a detox scenario from telephones, basically saying that he was reaching out for his phone over 100 times a day. Now, this might seem totally painless and totally fine, but in reality, going back to some of the issues that were mentioned this morning, people are lonely. We are so connected via our devices, but in reality, the human race is becoming more and more lonely. In Norway, which is considered one of the happiest nations in the world, I recently watched a TED Talk saying that actually 16% of people feel lonely on a daily basis. That means all the time, more or less. That's 1 in 6 individuals. And this stat is even higher for loneliness in general. Similarly, so I spent quite a large part of my life in New Zealand. And many people in this country say, wow, New Zealand, the perfect country, why are you here and not there? You know, all the economic indicators are really fabulous. You know, the country's doing well, low unemployment rates, generally happiness index is really high. But in reality, there's such a large number of those who are not happy with their life, who are lonely, and the rates of youth suicide are some of the highest in the world. And even the government has recognized this, and they're introducing mechanisms to deal with youth suicide and with loneliness. But what has that got to do with emotional intelligence? What I'm trying to say is that every single person has the responsibility to find their own way to pause, to slow down, and to find a way of understanding themselves, reflecting on how I feel, on what I need, and also how I'm going to behave. And also, we have the responsibility of recognizing what others feel and what others need. We have the responsibility as human beings in relating to them. If you're still not convinced, I'm going to convince you some more. I know some of you here in the audience, and I hope you have made it back after the break, are working in innovation, not only in terms of robotics, virtual reality, new solutions to help save the world and help improve in many different ways. I know some of you are doing amazing innovation in gaming. Well, in reality, you need emotional intelligence skills as well. And one of the main reasons, even if you feel that you're one of those people who's quite happy sitting there on their own, you know, entering code or however it is that you create these amazing things, in reality, you need to be able, A, to look after yourself, to be able to bring your genius to the world, but also you need to be able to understand the needs of those that you are producing your products for. How are you going to know what my psychological trauma is, and how are you going to ask me the right questions in order to help me overcome it through virtual reality? The only way to know is to actually have the skill of asking the right questions, of relating to other people, and then understanding the problem and managing that relation in order to create a solution. Similarly, so how many of you are here from startups? Different kinds of startups? Anything to do with startups? I see several hands. Yes, I know some of you are still shy. If you're in the startup industry, you will have to do some pitching sooner or later. We mentioned failing this morning, but pitching is a really important one as well. If you want to pitch successfully to your investors, you need to be able to understand what it is they're after, to understand their cues, and to understand how to build that relationship, even if you're pitching in a really brief period of time, in order to really achieve the investment you need to grow your business. The third element, which has to do with my experience of working with over 200 digital industry professionals last year, is to do with the need to connect. And I'm not talking about the connection through telephones and social networks. I'm talking about the real human-to-human connection. When I spoke to the people that were involved in this multinational program we were running, I asked, what was the most important thing you benefited from? And they didn't say the investment. They didn't say the ability to travel, although that's an important one as we learned. What every one of them said was connecting with others, facilitating the connection with other people. And that's a skill you will really, really need in the time to come, and also in the time we're living in at the moment. It's not an easy one, but it's an important one. What you see here is not a beauty ad. It's a picture of a group of my friends and I. We did a photo shoot to celebrate 40th birthday of one of us. And it's a demonstration that in this time and age, the support groups you have, you need to continue to nourish them. You need to know how to engage with yourself and with others through good times and the bad in order to make a difference and in order to sustain yourself in the world that is. And I'm trying to get to the last point, which is every one of us has the responsibility as a human being to make a difference, a positive difference, and to use your emotional intelligence in the artificial world we're in. Thank you.